Aztec fans, what is going on? How about this April 1st evening news? Magoon Gwath, he has posted this on social media. I saw that this is online as well. This quote: "Home is where the heart is. Staying home, I am excited to share that I am removing my name from the transfer portal. If I return to school next season, it will be as an Aztec. Thank you for your continued support as I go through the 2025 NBA draft process." From Magoon Gwath. Incredible, incredible news. It has been a wild week or 2 weeks here with the portal now open, obviously across college basketball. It's impacted everyone to some extent, some clearly benefiting, others are on the opposite side of that equation. And San Diego State getting some news that I don't think a lot of people really expected. There was a little bit of hope that came out within the last, I'd say, 48 hours. There was that tweet. I forget who it was. Some of the Covers high school recruiting said, I think it was Matt Kaiser, and correct me if I'm wrong, said he had spoken with Magoon, and Magoon had opened up the possibility of either returning to San Diego State or leaving potentially for Kentucky or Michigan. There were those that cover this sport and cover the portal and recruiting and movement that had made predictions that Magoon would, in fact, leave for the University of Kentucky if he didn't go into the NBA in 2025. Those predictions were coming in earlier in the day. It felt as if from the outside that was a distinct possibility. Brian Dutcher had been quoted from Mark Ziegler when Magoon went in the portal that the dollar figure was significant, clearly. I mean, Mcun Guath is one of the most talented big men in the country. He's, I don't know if this is fair or not or cliche, like he scratched the surface, but his upside remains so significant. And he just put together a phenomenal freshman year. Wasn't fully healthy, obviously, late in the year, got back for the NCAA tournament, played well in that game against North Carolina, especially when you consider the circumstances where he was out for 3 weeks. But again, Dutch talked about it, that, the Mesa Foundation, the work they're doing, the matching campaign, how all of this matters. But still, when you're trying to compete with these P4 programs like a Kentucky with what you would believe is unlimited resources and so on and so forth, it's going to be tough, right? When you're in a sport with this unlimited free agency and no salary cap, are you really going to be able to give players that type of money? But to everyone's credit, I mean, whether it's Magoon, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's this fan base, whether it's, again, the collective. I mean, you look at this, and Mcun Guath is staying if he doesn't enter the NBA draft. And that's just an amazing thing to say. In today's era of college basketball, which has become so transactional, to have someone stay is truly meaningful. And what does it mean for San Diego State? I mean, it could be just massive. It is significant. What impact does it have on the Aztecs in 2025, 26, and beyond? It's just, I don't think you can overstate the significance of what this could mean for San Diego State. I probably have 40 minutes. I've got to do a Padres wrap-up show at about 9:45 here tonight. I had to do this for Aztec fans. I know how excited people are. I know it's April 1st. I know what people have been thinking, but we've seen it from Mcun Guath on his own Instagram. We've seen it from Mesa. We've seen coaches interacting with some of these posts as well. I saw JD Luster on social media earlier tonight. So it's as official as you get in the portal era. He has removed his name from the portal. He will remain in the draft process. And if he doesn't enter the 2025 NBA draft, Mcun Guath is expected to be back on the Mesa in 25-26. And significant is a complete understatement when you begin to think about what this team could look like next season. You're looking at a team that is going to be receiving crazy preseason accolades potentially. That's for another day. The portal is still open. We know there can be movement. We've already seen it. I think Nick Boyd was a surprise to most. I had Brian Dutcher on my show, John and Jim, within the last week or 8 days, and he said that nothing surprises him anymore. And the Boyd, saga with him putting his name in the portal was not expected. But that's the world that we're in. There's 1,600 plus names right now in the portal nationally. There's only 300 teams, roughly, right? 300 to 400 teams. So do the math. I mean, every team has players from San Diego State to North Carolina to Michigan. And you've heard me say this. I think I did a wrap-up show when Boyd and Gwath announced, right? They announced within, let's say, 72 hours, 96 hours. And the point of my show was to kind of calm the masses that you got to trust in the staff. You got to trust in the culture. You have to understand that things have changed in college basketball. And San Diego State is still going to have a space, and a significant one, no matter what happens with the roster. They were one of the youngest teams in the country. They get to the NCAA tournament. Dutch has been to 7 NCAA tournaments in 8 years. He's been doing this a long time. Sport has changed continually for 30 plus years, and they've always been able to evolve. You've heard Dutch talk about that. Tell me what the rules are. I'll play within them. It's an adapt or die business is what college athletics have become. So I can't tell you right now that the entirety of this roster stays together, even with the Magoon news. You'd like to think that it does, but nobody can forecast that. If it does stay together, San Diego State's expectations, accolades, rankings in the preseason will be significant. And then, of course, they'll have to do it on floor like every other team in America in 2025-26. But the pieces that were here a year ago and could return. That they've already added in the portal. I had Jeremiah Oden on today on John and Jim. You can find that if you have the iHeartRadio app. You can search for John and Jim, and you can listen to that conversation. It was a really good one. He spent 3 years at Wyoming, 1 year at DePaul, 1 year at Charlotte. He's a bit of a stretch four. Yeah, he's 6'8", 6'9". Really nice addition by Brian Dusher and the staff, obviously in the portal. But I mean, we know what could return with the Reese Waters and the Miles Bird, who's entered his name in the draft process as well. And now Magoon Gwath and BJ Davis and Taj and Miles Heide, Pharaoh Compton, Thok Majak. So, I mean, you're talking about significant pieces and just a wonderful core to build around. And there's not going to be a lot of teams in the country with that type of continuity or core if it's able to be kept together. And if it's not, trust in the staff to make the additions to put the team in position to hopefully not just make the NCAA tournament, but win games in the NCAA tournament in 2026. So it's, I think it's a joyous night for Aztec fans. I tweeted earlier today because everyone remembers where they were. You remember where you were when you were watching or in the stadium in Houston 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago today. Now, has the sport changed over the last 24 months? You better believe it has. But San Diego State is still San Diego State, and there's a lot of reasons for optimism. And whether it was a Sweet 16 from 1 year ago or the NCAA tournament from 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, that national championship game just 2 years ago today, and now 2 years ago to the day of Lamont Butler hitting that shot in Houston, we get this significant announcement where Mcun Guath has withdrawn his name from the transfer portal. So if you have comments, reaction, I'd love to get to them. If you want to make sure I see your comment here over the next 30 or 40 minutes, you can support with the super chat by clicking the $sign below the chat box. And we can go anywhere you want with this conversation. This is not a complete roster. I think it was Mark Ziegler that earlier today talked about San Diego State having a transfer point guard on campus earlier today. Let me find that article. In fact, they got a visit today on campus from Sean Newman Jr., who has been playing at Louisiana Tech. His upcoming year will be his 5th season in college. He spent a couple of years in junior college. He's out of Southern California, and he was 3rd in the nation in assists per game last year at 7.9. The only 2 players with more assists per game last year than Sean Newman Jr., Ryan Nembhard at Gonzaga, who we saw firsthand at Viejas earlier this season, and produced Braden Smith, who was one of the top guards in the country. So, that's a topic of conversation as well. They are active. They are portaling, so to speak, the staff. They are engaging. Jeremiah Oden was here this past weekend. He announced his intention to commit to San Diego State within the last 24 hours. Now we learned about Newman Jr. being on campus, potentially to fill the role that Nick Boyd played to a large extent a year ago. And of course, now tonight we learn about Magoon Gwath as well. And for it to come, again, oftentimes what you think is once a player is in the portal, they are gone. And I've said this recently on John and Jim, what I've noticed over the last 12 months, I didn't see it as much, let's say over the last 24 months, but within the last 6 months with college football specifically. And now that we're in this portal window for college basketball as well, what I saw last portal window in college football is players would enter the portal and some of them would in fact return. I don't know how much we've seen it in college basketball so far this portal season. It's only been open for 9 or 10 days. But what Magoon just did is something that has been playing out in college football over the last portal window cycle. But I had Dutch on, and I'm sure a number of you heard that interview a week or 10 days ago. And he said if a player entered the portal, he would allow that player to return if it was done in a timely manner. And that's exactly what Mcun Guath did. I mean, the portal, again, has only been open for 10 days. Mcun entered, and he has now exited the portal. And now Dutch and the staff can forecast moving forward what they need to address in terms of their needs. I think the issue with the portal isn't that a player goes in it. It's that it gives you that unknown from a roster perspective for the coaching staff, right? Because if you're waiting on a player for 3, 4, 5 weeks, you can't fill that potential need. So you can't really wait to fill a need when you have the ambiguity. But that's not what played out here. And that's a credit to Magoon for making a quick decision. It really was. I mean, this whole thing played out in a week. And again, I think that there were a lot of people that were I said this a week ago on the wrap-up show, that were disenfranchised by the process and upset that a player of his caliber would be in the portal. And I said that very night, this is not a San Diego State conversation. It's a college athletics conversation. And I understand that for some, it's a lot of change in a short period of time, and it's a lot to deal with. But at the end of the day, again, what has been built here from Steve Fisher to Brian Dutcher is going to work across eras. And that's been proven over these 26, 27 seasons, and that's going to be proven moving forward as well. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be difficult. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fact of life. The sport is changing. Are we going to see an Aztec team that resembles the 23 team with 4th and 5th and 6th year players on it? Maybe we won't, but I'm not sure if we're going to see that team at North Carolina or Duke either moving forward. They're still going to be able to put together very quality, high caliber teams. They're just going to put them together differently. And it is true. You may not see players for 4 years, but then again, maybe you will. You know, if Magoon does return, it's his 3rd season at San Diego State. He redshirted, but he was here. And now this past season and potentially next season, if Miles Byrd does return, that's his 4th season at San Diego State. If you see a BJ Davis or a Miles Heide, that's their 3rd seasons at San Diego State. Same goes with Pharaoh and Taj if they return. That's their 2nd seasons on the Mesa. So I think sometimes there's this false narrative that has presented itself that, oh my gosh, San Diego State's losing all of its players. I don't think it could be further from the truth. They lost some players last year, like every program by and large in the country did, but they also kept a lot of players, including players like Reese Waters, by the way, who I mentioned him when I talked about some of the returnees. I mean, Reese next year, that would be what year on the Mesa for him? That's his 3rd year on the Mesa. So they have kept players. Even though they lost players this past offseason, they kept Reese Waters. They kept Miles Byrd. They kept BJ Davis. They kept Miles Heide, right? And so on and so forth. So again, I think sometimes there's an overreaction, which I completely understand from a fan perspective, because people are so vested in this program. It means so much to them, rightfully so. It's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people's lives over the last quarter century plus. You want to see them succeed. Of course you do. But with that, just trust the process. There's highs and lows. There's ebbs and flows to it. And in this brand new era, expect the unexpected at times. And good, not just bad, but also good. Look at Magoon tonight. I think a lot of people expect the unexpected to mean always sky is falling. Oh my gosh, who's the next name in the portal? And then you get news like tonight. And you should feel good tonight. And you should enjoy tonight, I think, as an Aztec fan. Because again, twists and turns are inevitable. There'll be highs and lows over the next season. And this is sports, right? Like life, it's unpredictable. Things do happen, but for a night, it should be celebrated. It really should. And I think Aztec fans, obviously, you're kind of because you're there each and every day, and because it means so much to you. This is one of those nights where, like, enjoy it. Like, you kind of earn it, right? Because you're so far invested with this program that when something like this happens, you should celebrate it and enjoy it. And this has become, I said this the other day, it's not a 365-day sport, but it's become much closer to a 365-day sport because the portal is almost like a season within itself. It's like how the NFL has like the combine and the draft, and it's all so drawn out. But if you're an NFL fan, you enjoy it. If you're a college basketball fan, there's some of this you might hate. There's some of it you may love. But the truth is you're following. You're paying attention. There's so many people I talk to that come up to me at the gym, or I was at Petco on Saturday. There was someone working the gates at Petco. He's asking me about the portal. He's asking me about Magoon. I go to the gym. I'm being asked about Magoon. I'm being asked about San Diego State. People care, right? People are vested. And just because the Aztecs don't have the same amount of money as Kansas's collective or Kentucky's collective doesn't mean that Aztec fans aren't as far in as all of those programs. I've always said that. I mean, San Diego State sells out every single basketball game. Aztec fans are passionate across all sports. I see it with football. I call the football games. I've seen that obviously for years with basketball. We see it across athletics. So just a good night is what I would say on this April 1st night. Mcun Guath withdrawing from the transfer portal. He will remain with intention to enter the 2025 NBA draft. If he doesn't enter the draft, he will return or is expected to return to the Mesa in 2025-26. So just incredible news, I would say, for Aztec fans. It's been a very newsy week plus with Boyd and Gwath, players entering the NBA draft process, Jeremiah Oden committing within the last 24 hours. I think there's a lot to like about his game, by the way, and maybe that's for another day with this Magoon news. But there's just been a lot. There's been a lot going on. You begin to envision what Magoon Gwath would look like as a third-year college player and as a redshirt sophomore who had one of the more impressive redshirt freshman seasons of anyone in the country. He is an elite defender. I think he's an elite offensive weapon, 3-level scorer. He nearly shot 40% from three as a freshman. I think at the end of the day, it was 37 or 38%. His mid-range game was very good. He had that 7, 8, 9 game stretch before the injury where he was playing as well as anyone at San Diego State. He was playing like one of the best players in the Mountain West Conference. He was able to post, right? His post moves were good. He was able to get to the basket. The mid-range game was strong, and he was confident in that 3-ball. And then defensively, it's about so much more than the blocks. It's about his ability to alter shots. And as he continues to strengthen and grow and develop, which he's done here at San Diego State, you begin to envision what it may look like with another offseason and season. And I don't know what that means from a points and rebounds and blocks perspective, but I do know what it means from a team perspective. And it's extremely impactful and extremely positive. And it's going to have a huge impact on San Diego State's ceiling for next year. Okay. It's going to have a huge impact on San Diego State's ceiling. And I think the ceiling has risen potentially significantly with this announcement here tonight. Was I expecting it? I'll be honest. No, I was caught off guard. I was not expecting it. I think a good way to look at some of this is just when a player's in the portal, you make an assumption that they're not going to return. And if they do, what a shot in the arm it is, which is what we all received here tonight from Magoon Gwath. And I've had the pleasure of sitting down with them. I interviewed all the players on this team for maybe 30 or 40 minutes each. I sat down probably for 2 or 3 or 4 days with the roster and carved out like 3-hour windows. And I talked to like 5 of them, you know, in July, and 5 of them 2 weeks later in July, and 4 or 5 of them for a couple of weeks in August. And I enjoyed having, you know, a lengthy sit down with Magoon, learning more about his background, about his skill set, how he was uncovered by San Diego State, how he was offered, I believe, on the spot by San Diego State when they saw him, how they've trusted in this process. They've developed him. He's gotten healthier after he redshirted. He was going up in practice against players like Jaden Ledee, right? And then what we saw from him, and he evolved in his freshman year, didn't he? From when the season started to where he was before he got hurt, and even in the NCAA tournament, you saw that improvement. You saw the development. You saw the impact he was making at both ends of the floor. If that continues, he's just putting himself in a position for just an extremely bright professional future, and obviously a bright future here while on the Mesa as well. So what can you say? What can you say? Zach, thank you, man, for the super chat. I appreciate you guys. If you wouldn't mind, and I'm going to be with you for, let's say, another 20 minutes. I don't even know what's going on right now because, again, I do these Padres shows and I do these Aztec shows, and I had a radio show today, and I'm trying to keep track with social media and everything that's going on. But if you wouldn't mind, I've had this channel for, I don't know, a year or two. It's a little bit of a passion project. Sometimes I get to it more than other times. I try to post interviews here. I do live shows when possible. I talk football, basketball, realignment, Pac-12, post whatever I think is of interest to Aztec fans. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you did. Simple as that. Doesn't cost a penny. Takes 2 seconds. hit the subscribe button. I do appreciate that. If you wouldn't mind liking the video, I think it helps with the algorithm. I think this will be viewed by a few thousand people between now and let's say 24 or 48 hours from now. So if you wouldn't mind liking this video, and I'm on social media, obviously, as well. I post a lot of information once it's available at John Schaeffer, a lot of Aztec content, JONSCHAEFFER, again, at John Schaeffer. Zach, appreciate you, man. He says, today, what does the starting lineup look like? I've never been, well, I don't like forecasting starting lineups. I don't. Because I think to some extent it's a little unfair because I feel as if some of that is earned over the course of like the summer and training camp. And there's so many moving parts. Like this past year, obviously Reese Waters is a starter and then he's hurt, right? 2 weeks before the season. So that impacts everything. But, Gwath is a starter because he was starting this past year. If Miles Bird returns, he's a starter. If Reese Waters returns, he's a starter. And, you got great pieces returning in BJ Davis and Taj DeGorville and Miles Heide and Pharaoh Compton. So you've got options, which is a good thing. Like heading into the year, you're going to have options. I think San Diego State's best teams don't have drop off when they go to their bench. I thought we said that a lot with this 24-25 team. I thought they got great production from the bench. They really have over these last, handful of years. You go back to 23 in the national championship, they had 9 starters. I mean, the players coming off their bench like a Guath, you have 9 starters when you have a Guath coming off your bench. And I think to some extent, we've said that a lot really since that 23 team, that their depth has been a strength. And, Dutch is going 9 deep. He's going 9.5. He's going 10 deep. And that's been really beneficial. I don't think there's been a drop off. And hopefully that's once again the story in 2025-26. So again, it's kind of, me kind of beating around the bush there. Obviously, it's just too early for me to know. They added Jeremiah Oden, who's a 6th-year player. Like this team has gotten older pretty quickly because all of a sudden, well, these players are aging, right? Up a year if they're returning. Then you had a 6th-year player in Oden. You're adding potentially via the portal. Obviously, this isn't their only portal move, you wouldn't think, in Oden. So maybe you're adding another, 3rd, 4th, 5th-year player via the portal. We talked about the point guard they had on campus earlier, 15 or 20 minutes ago. So, you've gotten older quickly, potentially, with this roster. They're not going to be as old as 2023. They might not be as old as 2024, but they will be light years older, potentially, than they were in 2025, which I think, bodes well because that matters. Continuity and age and experience matters in college basketball. That's why San Diego State was one of the few at-large contenders without that amount of experience, right? That was a rarity across college basketball last year. San Diego State was one of the least experienced teams and youngest teams in the country that qualified for the NCAA tournament, to their credit. And that's why I've said repeatedly that for Dutch and his staff to get that team to the tournament, to me, goes down as one of the better coaching jobs, arguably the best coaching job for Brian Dutcher and his staff over the last 8 years for me. So let's see here. Again, appreciate the supers. If you want to make sure I see your comment, I'm going to scroll back to the top and see if there's anything that I can react to here in real time. I see the excitement and, like Eric saying, what about the NBA? It's a possibility. You want players with high ceilings that have futures that might ultimately culminate in the NBA. Because when you prove that you can get players consistently to the NBA, you keep getting that level of talent. And for San Diego State over the last 15 years, they've gotten a lot of players to the NBA in some form or fashion, obviously starting with Kawhi, but it's continued. Malachi Flynn was a first-round pick. We've seen players, have opportunities. Nathan Mensah has spent time in the NBA. We've seen this now play out where obviously McDaniels has spent a good amount of time in the NBA over the last 3 or 4 years as well. So we've seen players get to the NBA. And I think that's a really good thing, obviously, for a program. It allows you to say, hey, look, we produce players that get to the NBA, and you're going to get guys with high ceilings and bright futures like Magoon Gwath. So it's always a possibility. And you're rooting for the player. I've always said that, right? In this system that you could argue, maybe it's broken, maybe it's not. This isn't about, I'm not blaming any players in this, whether they stay or go. When you think about the money that's on the line and the futures that you could potentially impact, and when you have a chance to go to the NBA or something like that, I mean, obviously that's what you're hoping for. Like you're hoping for Mcun Guath to have that opportunity. I think it bodes well for the program when a player has an opportunity like that. So I don't know when he's going to be in the NBA. I think he's got a chance to get to the NBA, but I'm not a scout and I don't know what his potential is today as opposed to 12 months from today or 24 months from today. But clearly, I think I'm not the only one saying this, and I think a lot of people see this, and I think scouts see it as well, that his future is extremely bright. Hence the amount of interest in Magoon over these last, 10 days or so. Zach, appreciate you. I mean, I think this is the type of stuff that, everyone wants everything from student athletes for their school. I'll give you an example. As he asked you, do I think Goon is a legend now at San Diego State? I mean, I think this is a big deal. I think you really do leave a legacy when you make a decision like this for alums and for a fan base. Like, I still see some of the commentary about, like, oh, Lamont, after 4 years, left for Kentucky. Lamont is an Aztec for life. End of sentence. He has a San Diego State degree. He gave everything to San Diego State. He's a winner. Went through personal tragedy at San Diego State, broke his wrist, had the disappointment on the floor in Maui, right, with the ending against Arkansas, the full redemption, helping guide a team to a national championship game. What more do you want? 4 years? 4 years is a long time. Keyshawn Johnson, 4 years in a San Diego State degree. Micah Parrish, 2 years, a San Diego State degree. These players have more than secure legacies. They have left significant marks on San Diego State and the program. And that will now include Magoon Gwath. I think by returning, I don't care about 2026, 27. Maybe then he enters the portal and leaves. Maybe then he ends up in the NBA. You can't ask everything of everyone. The world's evolving and changing. By making this decision, though, in the short term, I think, yes, I think it's very impactful for Aztec fans. And I think he will be remembered in a very positive light based on this one decision. I really do feel that way. And to me, you put on an Aztec uniform, you're an Aztec for life, especially in this new era. You put on an Aztec uniform, like I'm going to have favorable memories of Nick Boyd. I spent time around Nick Boyd. I understand what he meant to the team and the program. So he made a decision to leave. He has that right. Other people have made decisions to leave. People have left jobs. People think they're going to be in a job for 10 years and they end up leaving after 6 months. It's part of life. And they're entitled to these decisions. I really, truly feel that way. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I think they've already been able to attract quality transfers. I think that has been a little bit of a false narrative that's played out in recent history here that, oh, San Diego State's going to not be able to get the top tier transfers now because money is such a critical part of the puzzle. But that's not accurate because the Aztecs haven't changed their recruiting philosophy either before the 2023 national championship game appearance or afterwards. They've never targeted, the top 2 prep players in the country by and large, right? It's oftentimes been with late developers and under the radar and blue chip and something to prove type players. Like there is a type of player, athletic, physical, long, plays multiple positions, guards multiple positions. That's not always summarized by stars. Don't get caught up in, well, they didn't get a 5-star player or this player was the 150th ranked transfer. What about the other 149 in front of them? They're looking for a player that fits their system. They're not looking to appease rivals.com or some star system. The philosophy they've used, whether it's in the transfer portal before or into the future, has worked. So just trust in that fact. It's less about, a Dutch joked about this in 2023, like now that you've played for a national championship game, what's this going to mean for recruiting? He's like, I have no problem with recruiting. I get the players that I want in my system and we win at a high level. And that's what I want to continue to do moving forward. So I don't think 2023 really has changed the philosophical, or like the philosophy of what Brian Dutch and his staff are trying to accomplish from a recruiting perspective. I really don't. Defense first, athleticism, gamers, winners, right? Whatever cliche you want to use, but there's some truth in there because, again, they've been winning at such a high level. So far, Zach, right? So far that, this roster has stayed largely intact to the credit of the staff, but we know that it's possible that things can change. But yes, so far, and I do think it speaks very highly of the culture and the program overall. Let's see here. Yeah, I saw some of the stuff earlier on Kentucky. I don't interact with it until it's official. I'm not touching it. I think we did comment on John and Jim about what someone had reported. They said we spoke with Mcun Guath and he had Zoom calls with Kentucky and Michigan, and he's considering a return for San Diego State. I think that's newsworthy. I'll report on that. Someone had a reporter talk to Magoon. Here's what he said. I think that's newsworthy. But for, internet sleuths to say, I'm going to make a prediction and Magoon's going to Kentucky, wait for, I've got the time to wait it out. I'll wait for Magoon to make his decision. If it takes another 24 hours or 48 hours or a week, I'll let him make that decision. And slow and steady sometimes wins this race, right? People thought he was going to Kentucky. People thought it was a formality. It wasn't, in fact, a formality, as we've learned here tonight. Voltum, thank you. He says, Gwath showing that loyalty does exist. John, is there a reason why JUCO players simply are not being looked at? I'm sure SDSU can find a talented bargain JUCO player. Thoughts? I mentioned earlier that the player that was on campus today, Ryan Newman Jr., Sean Newman Jr., 6'1" point guard. He's out of Southern California, played at Louisiana Tech. I think the last 2 years, was third in the nation in assists last year. He spent 2 years in junior college, Fullerton College. He won a JC State title on a 32-1 team before going to Louisiana Tech. So I think they're willing to scour everywhere. Trey Pulliam, I think, was out of junior college. Was he not? Initially, before he ended up at San Diego State. They will look high and low. They will leave no rocks unturned, right? They'll find the players that will fit into what they're trying to accomplish. So I don't think it's anything specific to junior college players. I really don't. I just think it's looking for a player that fits into what they have a need for and in what they're trying to, establish, what their needs are. I think they're basically looking to fill needs wherever they can fill them. If it's high major, low major, Division II, junior college, Division III, whatever you want to say, bounce back to Southern California, whatever it is. I think they're willing to consider it all. And I think they've proven that with their recruiting philosophy here over the years. A couple of more minutes, guys. I probably have another 5 minutes or so, just kind of scrolling through. I think it's probably too early to forecast anything about what 2025 is going to look like this fall, because again, portal's open. There's been movement everywhere. We don't know how other teams are going to improve. We don't know what's going to happen with San Diego State, but I know the expectations are going to be through the roof. I do know that. And they've been higher, obviously, for the last 3, 4, 5 years. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I think they relish those expectations. And I think they've been able to thrive off those expectations recently as well. Kevin, thank you. Says, John, any idea if Majak is close to game ready? Yeah, I think absolutely. I think we'll have opportunities coming up this fall. I think he might be taller than Magoon. I've watched him practice. He's probably a half inch or an inch taller than Magoon. I think his defensive skill set appears to be obviously very strong. Offensive skill set is probably going to come along. We haven't yet seen him in a game. I talked to him as well this offseason. I think he said that basically to me. He said, I think my defense is ahead of my offense. I'm paraphrasing. So he's had a year now to redshirt, practice against this team, practice against players like Magoon, Jared Coleman-Jones, Miles Heide, others. So yeah, I think he'll play a role. I think he'll make an impact. I don't think there's any question about that. Completely agree with this. Completely agree with this. If you want to see these players stay, if you want to see them continue to add the pieces that are necessary to compete at the very highest level, completely agree with this. Mesa-aztecs.org. Thanks for the update here, Omar, because I haven't been watching since it was 3-0, truthfully. I don't think so, JP. He says, John, when we say we are losing all our players, what it means is we are losing the players we love. You love all these players. You love Miles Bird. You love Reese Waters. You love all of these players. All of these players have a special spot in everyone's heart, right? I mean, they've won. What else could you ask of these players? All right, these are some of the best players in the history of San Diego State's program are here right now, right? These are some of the best players in the history of the program because this program is clicking at a high level right now over these last handful of years. So any player that you lose is a significant loss, is what I would say. So all of these players are impactful. No doubt, I think Compton was, for a true freshman, really was impressive. I would say the same thing about Taj. And you can only imagine the strides that they could be taking over the next 6 months or so. Let's see here. A couple of more before I have to go. Oh, let's see. A lot of you guys commenting and chiming in. A lot of excitement, obviously. Yeah, imagine this, what Majak and Goon could look like together on the floor. I haven't really fully thought about it as of yet, but that'll be interesting to see if that does play out at some point in 25, 26. Brent, I don't know. Again, I spoke with him earlier today. He says, I wonder if Odin rethinks his commitment. There's another mouth to feed at the 4 with Goon back. He can play the 3, but also Tay coming in. Yeah, Tay Simmons. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I spoke with him today, and he said the primary reason he made this decision, and he could have made this decision 2 years ago, but he didn't. And he said this was now a no-brainer, and he wants to win. So none of that changes. If you want to win, this gives you a better chance of winning now that Mcun is back. And like all players, nobody's playing 38 minutes. None of these forwards play 36 minutes in a game. There's minutes. There are minutes out there. So like I remember when Nathan was here, terrific 4-year player, but no forward or center is averaging 33, 34, 35 minutes. So there's going to be minutes and there's going to be opportunities. So if anything, you could argue that it's maybe, it maybe further confirms the decision that Odin made, truthfully. Couple of more, and I got to roll, guys. I apologize. If it wasn't for the Padres, I would be doing this probably for the next hour or so. The players' era is going to be unbelievable next year. I thought it was terrific this year to see San Diego State beat Creighton and Houston, but just the lineup in general. You talk about some high-level competition in Las Vegas and some opportunities for San Diego State. No clue who they're going to play, but whoever they play, there's just going to be some huge opportunities. It was an amazing event this past year. If you didn't go this past year in Vegas, go this year because the Aztecs have an amazing home court advantage in Vegas. They win at a high level. The fan support means everything. Put it in your calendar right now. Plan to get to the Players Era Festival. Plan to get there. I think in about 3 weeks. I think April 22nd. Or April 23rd, right around when the portal closes. I think around April 22nd or April 23rd. All right, guys. Appreciate you. I need to run much more on this. John and Jim tomorrow, 2 p.m., San Diego Sports 760, iHeartRadio app, or you can find us on YouTube. Search for John and Jim 760 or listen on the radio, San Diego Sports 760. So much more reaction. Magoon Gwath has withdrawn from the transfer portal, intends to return if he does not enter the 2025 NBA draft. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, I appreciate it. Year-round content for Aztec fans. We talk basketball, football, realignment, and more. Please subscribe. Smash the like button. You can follow me on X at John Schaefer. That is JONSCHAEFFER. Appreciate you all. Get excited. And again, stay nimble. Transfer portal's still open, but a lot of excitement. Obviously on the Mesa tonight, Magoon Gwath has withdrawn from the transfer portal and hopefully will return to San Diego State in 2025-26. My name is John Schaefer. This has been The Wrap-Up Show.